am very happy to bring on Mike Wood here from Samsung. Please take over, Mike.
Thanks.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, thank you, and here you go.
Get me all set up.
You're in charge. Okay.
How's everybody doing? I know everyone's really eager to get going. To Kevin, and as Ryan's pulling up, helping me with my PowerPoint, I'll just start talking about useless nonsense. And hopefully I can get through this fairly quickly so we can get to the real fun stuff. So, exactly. We have a lot of TVs here today, and fortunately Dr. Weber already talked about a lot of the technology, so I don't have to talk about most of that, which is good. But we have our plasma from last year, the King of HDTV winner, so obviously we're very happy about that. It's a great set in a number of ways, which I'll touch on briefly. And then over on your far left, we have our 78-inch HU9000. Is what I call the top of our consumer line. It should be the top of the line normally, but then we came out with some really esoterically crazy stuff that is, of course, now the top of the line. So then we have just a step down from that set, but in a larger screen size, we have an 85-inch HU8550. So a lot of similar features as the HU9000 in our UHD lineup, but in a larger screen size that is similar to our 85-inch S9, but in a little bit more cost-effective package. We have, over in the bottom left, we have last year's, but still current, the KN55 S9C, which is our OLED display. And then last but not least, I'll touch on our newest display that we showcased at CES this year, which is the KN105 S9W, which is a CinemaScope wide 105-inch ultra high def TV. And I'm going to do one thing on that display before I go on, because I'm not very good with PowerPoint, so I figured the only really impressive thing I could do was put my PowerPoint in 21:9. So, freak. So it fills the screen, or it's letterboxed, which you can do with your movies too. So just to kind of blaze through these fairly quickly, like I said, the plasma, we all love plasma. I'm an enthusiast like you guys. Have been doing videos since I started with Joe 20 years ago and calibrated hundreds of projectors and displays. Was the senior technical editor at Home Theater Magazine, so I was doing reviews like guys like Ty and Chris and Kevin do now, and then moved over to the dark side in manufacturing, just to kind of do some other, yeah, well, there's that. A little more stable job than publishing, but you know. You know, so we love the plasma. The plasma is great, and it won tons of awards, not only the King of HDTV at this shootout last year, but it was a great set last year and continues through this year. So as somebody else mentioned, we will continue to manufacture these through the end of the year, and we plan on having it available. We officially say the end of the year. Depending on demand, you know, that may be shorter or longer than that by a little bit, but so we plan to keep selling it as long as we can. Unfortunately, the market is, you know, not as supportive of plasma. As we all know, the market really supports LED, and so we try to make the most with our LED. But just to touch on one of the reasons this plasma was unique was the engineers did a great job creating this super high contrast panel. The deeper cell structure and wider cell structure allowed a lot brighter light output, which actually matched the light output of LED displays on some levels. And that was long an obstacle for plasma, and is one of the strengths of LEDs that people really like for LEDs, and one of the reasons I think that LEDs have been as successful as they have been. But we have to live in the world that consumers allow us to live in, and that's an LED, LCD world. And so our flagship, in an attempt to create a reasonably economical, you know, top-of-the-line model for this LED backlit LCD world we live in, is our HU9000. And it has a number of features that we're pretty proud of, one of which I'll talk about on the next slide, which is called Pure Color, and helps improve our color tracking from dark to light and from white to fully saturated colors. And It is an edge-lit display, although we have improved the contrast on the edge-lit display by using local dimming in that edge-lit display, which Philip talked about a little briefly on the Sony displays as well. But again, using multiple zones on the edges of the display to dim the dark areas of the picture, yet keep the brightness in the brighter areas of the picture to improve your contrast. Another really important aspect of displays that these guys will talk about is motion resolution. Motion resolution is pretty much dictated by three different aspects of the TV's performance: the TV panel's refresh rate, the video processing that's on board, and the backlight scanning, and what I like to call as effective backlight scanning in the display or in the backlight. The reason I call it effective backlight scanning is the backlight, it's not enough just to have a display that flashes the backlight in some manner. The backlight, in order for it to be effective in improving your motion resolution, it needs to match with the change in the LCD panel on the front, so that the backlight is, the portions of the backlight that are blinking or flashing are disabling as the LCDs are changing state from one frame to the next. And an LCD panel does that in a vertical dimension. It starts at the top and works its way down. So you want the backlight to turn off on that top section as the top section is turning from one frame to the next, so you don't see that crystal changing state from one state to the next. And so that is a pretty significant element in your motion resolution. And it's something that in our edge-lit displays, because the LCDs are on the edges, on the left and right sides, we're able to do that, and we're able to match that vertical cycling of the LCD panel. We, of course, have what we think is an excellent quality UHD upscaler in our TVs. And as others have noted, that's a really important aspect, since a lot of your content for the foreseeable future is going to be 1080p, and it needs a lot of scaling to get to 4K. I don't really talk about it that much. I think the reviewers and the guys here have tested it and proven its capabilities, and I'd rather leave it to them. But I will mention we do have a lot of different outlets for what you want in terms of content, as far as streaming, Netflix. We have relationships with MGO and Amazon and DirecTVs coming up soon. We also offer our UHD video packs. The current one I think we offer has 5 movies that's available, and we'll have more coming down the line. Just to talk briefly about the pure color function, it's a processing function. In the past and in some of the other models, we have a 27-point processor that helps to track color from different levels. We've moved to what we call an HSV color processor, which is using 192 points. It's mostly just, a math, and it's a number, but the point of that is it allows you to better track your grayscale, you better track your colors, like I said, from light to dark, from white to fully saturated points, so that when the TV is calibrated by guys like this, then it'll track better when you're watching it. From there, we step down, although the screen size gets larger on our 85-inch HU 8550. A lot of the same features in the HU 9000 in terms of the ultra-high definition resolution. It has the same horizontal or the same vertical backlight scanning function. It has an edge-lit local dimming, not as many zones as in the HU 9000, but still improved contrast. This model of this series is unique because it's a backlit display, so it's more like a full array backlit. We don't call this one a full array backlit. We kind of call it a direct backlit because it has the same number of zones as, say, the 65-inch version of this series, the 65 HU 8550. It's not as full array as, say, the 105-inch or the 85 S9, which have hundreds of zones behind them. We don't talk about the actual number of zones, but they will. I'm going to let them do that. They're in the ballpark. One of the reasons, I'm glad you asked that, one of the reasons we don't talk about zones is the zones themselves, like the refresh, which we don't talk about anymore either, it's just one part of that whole process. The number of zones is just one part of the backlighting process. Another part of that process that the engineers at Samsung have done an excellent job of doing is what I call backlight management. So you can't just, it's easy enough to dim, you know, one area of the picture is dark, so you dim the backlight. The next area is bright, and so you keep it lit. But it's not enough just to do that, because it becomes extremely noticeable when those two areas are next to each other, and if you have black areas of the picture in both of those zones. So you need to start managing how you do that depending on what's going on in the different parts of the picture. So what you end up doing is you end up dimming certain areas less or more, so it's less noticeable. So to a certain extent, by just completely dimming the darker areas of the picture, you can make that, the haloing, if you will, that you end up seeing more noticeable. So what you want to do is you kind of want to massage that a little bit. You want to control that a little bit between dark and light areas. So that's another aspect, and like I said, one of the reasons we don't talk about zones. I have seen TVs that have had 2-3 times as many zones as ours or other displays that didn't look as good. So the number of zones didn't necessarily equate to better quality, and this is exactly. But it is an indicator of, you know, when you have that management. And for an example, I can tell you, I mean, these are in the dozens of zones, and this, the 8550 versus the 9000, for example, the 9000 is twice as many zones as the 8550. Then when you go in the S9 products, you're looking at more like hundreds of zones. Of course, we have our OLED in the lower right-hand corner, lower right, my lower right, your lower left. As Dr. Weber talked about, simpler design, no backlight, self-emitting display, gives you better blacks, better contrast. We do use RGB. We do feel like that it is more expensive, it is more complicated. We do feel like it can give you better efficiency and better viewing angle without the color filter. We also use polysilicon TFTs, which don't get a whole lot of press. We think they're important. I think they're important because that's the processing that's driving the panel, and the polysilicon TFTs are more stable over the long term. Last but not least, because I know you guys want to get to the testing, I want to touch briefly on the KN105 S9. It's our ultimate ultra high definition display. It is in the CinemaScope aspect ratio. If you're familiar with the black bars we often see in movies, this would allow you to get rid of those. This would allow you to have a cinema-like experience in a room that doesn't accept a projector, that can't be completely dark. It is a full array backlit display. It has all the same technology that I talked about briefly in the HU9000, but it is a 5120 by 2160 resolution display. We go along with Joe Kane in the idea that it should be a 2160 display or class of display. Some people have hinted that it could be called 5K. We don't go that far. If you do the math, it ends up being about 237 to 1, although we will call it a 21 by 9 display just because the industry is kind of familiar with that term, even though that term doesn't really equate to CinemaScope either, which is another one of those quirks of our industry. But esoterically expensive. It's here kind of for fun. It is a great display. One thing I will say about it is it looks best from where Dwayne's sitting or anywhere along here, so you do have to move to be in front of it where you would experience it in your home. If you're sitting where Ty's sitting, it's probably not going to look so hot. So we're going to have to move Ty's chair. One last thing I wanted to mention is all of our displays do match the CEA's current definition of ultra high definition, and they include HEVC for downloading or streaming 4K videos from Netflix or other outlets. They do include HDMI 2.0 inputs, and they do include HDCP 2.2 certification. Last but not least, all of the ultra high definition displays as well as the OLED are One Connect upgradable. The 9000 and the S9 series TVs come with the One Connect cable, which is a separate box where all of your inputs connect to. So not only is it convenient, you can have this box in your equipment rack, have just one cable going to your display for a very clean installation, but it also allows us and you to upgrade later. As Joe talked about, the connectivity is very important. As 4K broadcast comes out with a new port, as Joe's process or the Hollywood studios come out with something that provides a different source signal. When you need a new connector, there is the possibility here to upgrade that and still be able to get that signal into your display in the future. The 8550 does not come with the One Connect. It has a jack pack on it, which has all these same features, HDMI 2.0, HDCP 2.2, and HEVC processing, but it can be upgraded. It has a One Connect port, so you can upgrade it in the future with that same technology. That's my spiel. Thank you very much.
That was beautiful. Thank you.